Shalom. Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of the Chai Academy, and being broadcast from the Chai Center. So we've embarked on a new course, and we started a few days ago. Each one stands on its own merit, so it's not necessarily a continuum, unless by rare exception it will be. So the course is Jewish ethics and beliefs. And today, yesterday we discussed stumbling blocks and things like that. What does it mean? Don't put a stumbling block in front of the blind. Today's course is going to be on the very famous line in the Torah where it says an eye for an eye. Justice, an eye for an eye. What does it mean? Now, Shalom Eileen. What's interesting is this eye for an eye business is probably the most vilified line in of all of the Torah. It seems barbaric, an eye for an eye, revenge, and in fact, Israel. A lot of the times with Israel, is they say, they're taking revenge on the Arabs and an eye for an eye, because that's what their Torah says. So it's vengeance, and Christians, we have a New Testament where we don't do eye for an eye. We turn the other cheek, and it's the Old Testament, and it's the Jews, and it's the Hebrews, and the Israelis, and the IDF. They have such a thing called an eye for an eye. Eye for an eye, direct consequence, and they take your eye out, you take their eye out. Your tooth, their tooth, their life, your life, your life, their life, etc., etc. So it needs clarification what it means, an eye for an eye. Now, it's while it seems harsh, it actually, in contrast to every other society out there, especially in the times where the Jews, when the Hebrews, Israelites received the Torah, it was so progressive, it was so far advanced of all the tribes, and it's even advanced in today's standards. If you think about that region in the Middle East, they're truly, literally an eye for an eye. As we'll soon discuss, an eye for an eye is the Torah's form of justice. Eye for an eye is so far superior. If you've ever watched Aladdin, and I'm not 1000% sure this happens, but if you ever watch Aladdin, they catch a thief, they cut your arm off, okay? Because you stole. That's an eye for an eye. Judaism finds that abhorrent. Never cut somebody's arm off because they stole something. Would never cut someone's genitalia off because they had illicit sex or same sex, with the same gender. I mean, it doesn't happen. It's not the case. So, and in fact, back then, before the Torah, before the book code from the Torah was given, they have something before it. It's called the Hammurabi Code. The original Hammurabi Code was basically, it was a code written on this it's from Babylon, and it was before the Torah was given, and it was a code that people lived by. The original Hammurabi Code, by the way, which was engraved on a 7.5-foot stone, could be found in Paris in the museum. But the Hammurabi Code is basically it is bizarre compared to Torah. So let me give you an example. Hammurabi Code, Law 229. If person A is a builder, and he builds a house, a construction, something for person B, the construction was not built properly, and the construction part of the, or all part, whatever, it doesn't matter, of the construction fell, and it killed person B's daughter. According to the Hammurabi Code, the contractor, who is person A, because the contractor's building killed person B's daughter, person A's daughter is put to death. That is the Hammurabi Code. Judaism completely rejects this notion. And that's what an eye for an eye means. Right? As we'll explain, right? An eye for an eye, the punishment, A has to fit the crime, but that's loosey-goosey because it could truly be an eye for an eye. We'll talk about that. But an eye for an eye is, you don't take the punishment out on the perpetrator's kids. If person A built a building not to standards, right, and was negligent, you deal with person A. You don't deal with person A's daughter. That's obscene. Right? You want to say person A's daughter was also part of the contract, the team that contracted the building. It's one thing, okay, so you're held liable. You're a perpetrator as well. But eye for an eye, the first thing we have to realize what eye for an eye means is that the person that committed the crime or the negligence has to be dealt with. And you do not bring other family members, broad, net on other family members. That's the first thing. Furthermore, if there's an accident, even negligence, by the way, if there's an accident as opposed to premeditated, if there's an accident, you never kill the perpetrator. You just don't. Premeditated murder, we could talk about, and we will. But if there's an accident happens, you don't kill the perpetrator. You don't. Right? I, not life. Right? Judaism rejects the notion that it has to, you take a life over an accident. Judaism also rejects the notion that Judaism embraces the notion that it has to be, the punishment has to be commensurate with the deed and not exceed. The punishment must never exceed the deed. So to kill person A's daughter because person B's daughter was killed is completely off the mark. Also, as the rabbis in the Talmud, the commentary, Rashi, other places, and it's discussed in the Talmud, when they say eye for an eye, is not literally to be taken literally. You punch somebody and you knocked out their eye, so your eye has to be taken out. We have to take your eye out. First of all, take somebody's eye out, you can kill him. You can literally kill him. So it means that it's a monetary punishment. And the commentaries and the Talmud explain how it's done. What would somebody be worth on the butcher's block, on the slave market, which we don't have it really today, but we do have actuaries. So somebody on an actuarial market, what are they worth with an eye or without an eye? How much is that eye worth? In olden times, it was done on the butcher's block, the slave block. Nowadays, it's done actuarially. So is an eye worth $1,000, $5,000, $50,000? Is an eye worth $100,000? What is an eye worth? We know that that's how it's done in a court of law today, and that's how it was done. That's how the Torah said that what is a slave worth with both eyes or with one eye? Oh, there's a $17,000 difference. So that's what that person has to pay to the person whose eye he punched. That he was culpable for losing that person's eye, for causing that person to lose the eye. So it doesn't mean literally at all, not at all. The only exception, as we said earlier, the only exception to the above is premeditation. If you it's not an accident, it's not negligence. The Torah tells us you plan a murder, you're going to receive capital punishment. You plan a murder and you executed the murder. Not just a plan, but you planned and executed the murder. The Torah's ethics teach us that capital punishment is acceptable. And is what is needed for a murder that's premeditated. However, if you murdered somebody by torturing them for days on end, you locked them up in your basement, you're a sadist, you're a masochist, you're a Charles Manson type person, and you limb by limb, who writes these crazy novels? Jeffrey Deaver, I think his name is, where he writes novels about insane people that Lincoln Rhyme has this right, he has to save, and so the person was tortured, incredibly tortured, raped, then killed. The Torah tells us that the person needs capital punishment, but you don't rape and kill him. The punishment of taking their life is done swiftly. This is, by the way, one of the ways that we know the Jews did not kill Yahshua Jesus, is because Judaism would never, ever torture somebody by hanging them on a cross until they die by either hypothermia, dehydration, or sunburn. The methods of killing an individual is done swiftly, as swift as we can. It's all over. Less than the time it takes to do a mercy killing by lethal injection. Decapitation happens immediately. It's gory, but it happens immediately. And the person doesn't have to get into an electric chair for 6 minutes until they expire. Or lethal injection for who knows how long until the heart stops. It is done swiftly. So capital punishment is in such a small amount of cases. Otherwise, it's eye for an eye, monetary. Never literally an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, leg for a leg, arm for an arm, limb for a limb. It doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen. It's all what is it person worth with one leg or with both legs. Actuarially. Right? An eye for an eye teaches us another incredible Jewish ethic. That a person killed somebody premeditatedly. I think I said that word wrong. That was kind of a George W. Bush pronunciation. Nuclear. An eye for an eye means that if somebody killed somebody, you can't say, okay, it's punishable by death or $1 million. No, it's punishable by death. You cannot get away by giving money. You can't do that. The Beth Din won't accept it. You can't buy your way out of this, Buster. Right? And now we don't really have Judaism doesn't have the death penalty. We don't have our temple. We don't have our Grand Sanhedrin, the court of law court of law of 71 people. We just don't have it. We don't have it. So now perhaps there's a monetary punishment, there's imprisonment, whatever. But according to the strict letter of the law, you can't buy your way out. You can't. Eye for an eye. Kill somebody, you're going to be killed. That's where it fits. Right? Also, an eye for an eye is, the Torah is teaching us that if you hurt, you maimed or you killed somebody from a lower class than you, like in India has this caste system. Judaism tells us a human being is a human being, eye for an eye. Well, my eye is I'm from nobility. I come from son after son after son after son of the great so-and-so. Judaism says, who cares? Who cares? It's an eye for an eye buster. So you killed somebody of the lower class, you're not going to get away with just paying money. Right? So we learn that from an eye for an eye. Another thing, and yes, you always need, Eileen brings up a good point. You always need two witnesses. If you don't have two independent witnesses who are not related to the perp, who are not related to each other, the witnesses, not related to the victim, if you have two independent corroborating witnesses, then capital punishment takes place, then corporal punishment takes place. If there are no witnesses, then there's no lashes, there's no death. And these witnesses, once again, can't be related to anybody. And these witnesses can't even be related to each other. And it can't be circumstantial witnesses. Well, we saw him running after him and then with a knife, and then we see him dead. No, you have to see the act. That's part and parcel of being a witness. You have to see it from beginning to end. No circumstantial evidence here. I was once brought to jury duty, and I was picked. I was nominated, and the whole case was circumstantial. And I said, no, I can't punish somebody based on circumstance. My training. So the judge says, well, I can't compete with you, Maimonides, Moses, and he dismissed me, which was fantastic because I got home in time for dinner. But yeah, circumstantial evidence does not wash at all, any way, shape, or form. The other thing, eye for an eye, is somebody, you're a nobleman, you're very fancy, you're a big macha. On a big macha, right? So you burn their field, you smash up their car, you do something, and you're a regular person, not even low on the caste system, but you're a regular person, but you hit a nobleman's car. You burnt a nobleman's field, or you ruined his house. You placed a bomb in his house when nobody was home. You can't say, because it was a nobleman, we're gonna deal with you extra harshly. Because you did X and Y and Z with a person's car and house. It doesn't wash. Eye for an eye. So Judaism just looks at the person, eye for an eye. There's not this fancy eye, this manicured eye versus this unmanicured, unwashed eye. Likewise, teeth. Somebody has rotten teeth because they're in a caste system, because it has nothing to do. There's no difference. There's no change. Right? We deal with everybody equally, and that's what it means. Eye for an eye. Feel free, please, to share this short clip. Share it on your Facebook. Share it other places. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask here, or you can email me, rabbi@thechaicenter.com. Tomorrow, November the 10th, there will be no classes. I have a funeral. See you November 11th. God bless.